she did not take away our faith.
Steve Futterman, CBS News, New Orleans.
Bells tolled this morning at churches throughout the region, a decade since Katrina killed more than 1,800 people, making more than 1 million homeless. The manhunt for a suspect in the ambush killing of a deputy sheriff in Texas continues in the Houston area. A man is being questioned as a person of interest, but not under arrest, not a suspect. Sheriff Ron Hickman appeals for help tracking down the shooter.
From video retrieved from the location, we know that other individuals drove up to the service station while this incident was going on. We asked them to come forth with information that will assist us in this investigation.
Harris County Deputy Darren Goforth was pumping gas last night when a man approached from behind and fired several shots, killing him. Erika, once a tropical storm, now losing its punch after battering Dominica, still moving toward Florida a day or so away. Florida Governor Rick Scott says there's still a threat of flooding in some areas.
If you look at history, these storms, we can still get a lot of rain. Tampa area in particular is still saturated, so we still have some risk.
All watches and warnings for coastal areas have been lifted. What remains is moving toward the west-northwest at about 22 miles an hour with sustained winds of 35 miles an hour. A county clerk in Rowan, Kentucky, continues to defy the law, denying marriage licenses to gay couples, now formally asking the Supreme Court to weigh in. Clerk Kim Davis says, according to her religion, gay marriage is wrong. She believes the First Amendment is on her side. CBS News senior legal analyst Andrew Cohen.
You can't have the Constitution apply in some counties in Kentucky and not other counties, and every day that clerk fails to issue those licenses is a day she is violating the Constitution and any oath she may have taken to uphold it. So I would be shocked if the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't quickly reject her claim.
Davis in Rowan closed her office today ahead of a planned protest rally. Play-by-play of University of Illinois football this season will include something new because of it.
Welcome inside the Paris Sea Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live here on Power Talk 1210 KEVT, Sahuarita, Tucson. Thank you for making us a part of your day today. My show revolves around the 4 L's: leadership, love, life, and lineage, and the ongoing story of real music made by real artists. My guest today hails from a bastion of regional arts and entertainment. Berkeley, California grew out of the Kerouac and Ginsberg beats, whose howling gave way to a mindset of creativity by embracing all cultures to form one race, the human race. My guest developed his chops as a bass player through playing on the bandstand with Salsa de Berkeley and other gigs at Andre's or Jimbo's Bop City, or the Record Plant with Mingo Lewis, mixing a slapping bass style with Latin impulses and funk rock, locking the groove with Carlos Santana when time stood still as my guest traveled the world during the age of Guitar Hero. He listens, he collaborates, he continues to be fed by the music. In the early 1980s, my guest merged with Grateful Dead drummer Bill Kreutzmann to form one of the most stealth Berkeley bands that eventually turned into Go Ahead with Brent Mydland and Alex Litcherwood, partying and playing in sweaty bars and clubs. My guest today continues to play music in his band or head up to his cabin in the hills to clear his head. What an honor. Dave Margen, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake. Good to be here.
I want to ask you off the top, Dave. We were talking off air about your experience at Berkeley High in the music class and the kind of the concepts that your teachers were going over at the time. And I'm wondering because really music schools had not taken off. Jazz and music was not being learned in academia. So I kind of wanted you to talk about why it was, what got you off in your high school band class as far as concepts and theories and that kind of stuff.
Okay. I mean, my first comment about that is it's really unfortunate, all the cuts that have happened in music in the schools, because, man, it's such an important part of education in this country. And, jazz, especially being an indigenous American art form, it's just too bad that there's been so many cuts, but there's also been good organizations like Music Cares through the Grammys and other groups that have kind of come in to pick up some of the slack or the deficit for funding for music in the schools. As far as my experience back when, Berkeley was very unique in that it actually, when I was in, I believe, 5th grade, there was actually a music teacher named Phil Hardiman who was starting to teach jazz at that early age. And so when I was in 5th grade, I was playing with people like Peter Applebaum, Rodney Franklin, who also came out of the Berkeley Public Schools.
Wow, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
And so I think back then I was playing, that was before I was even playing bass. I was playing drums when I was like, 10 years old or something like that.
You got to be kidding. You were playing a trap?
So,
you were playing a trap set?
Yeah, I was playing a trap set before I played bass. I started bass when I was, I think, 11 or 12, something like that. But before that,
Margen,
I want to
ask you a question. I want to go back. I want to go back for a second. It may be self-evident to you, or even a non-musician like myself, but aside from the cuts, why are and you have these other organizations that are offsetting it by putting money in and helping cultivate music, but why have we gotten to a point where when you were there, art and music was considered a profession, as opposed now we have the pay-to-play thing? Can you explain why it is so integral to have music as part of a school system?
Yeah, but because music is something that brings, I think, all people and cultures together. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, music in the schools, man, it was bringing, black cats, white guys, Asian, Hispanic, bringing everybody together into one place where we were actually learning to play together and learning about different cultures. And I think also just the arts in general is so important for development in who we are as people, and especially for kids in schools, and especially for kids in disadvantaged schools who, are not in private schools and where they have plenty of money to fund the program. So I just think that it's really unfortunate that, everything's been placed on accreditation and test scores and trying to, get the test scores up, especially in California.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, sure. So
anywhere, yeah.
Anywheres, but so it's just that has really been taken out of a lot of curriculum, and I just think it's really too bad.
Could you personalize it and give an example of how it helped you at an early age recognize that we are all one race, and how it's like a musical race? I mean, I couldn't think of a better. Did that impact you early on and affect you?
Sure. I mean, I think when I was 14 or 15, I was at Berkeley High, and we had, I think I was telling you this off air a couple of days ago, that we had a music teacher. His name was Herbert Mims, and he was actually the musical director for the Whispers, which were, back then a pretty big vocal soul band out of Oakland.
Yeah,
they're
right.
a national touring act.
Wow.
And so when he was off the road, he was teaching this class. I think it was, I forgot what it was called, rock, blues, and jazz or something like that. But for me, all the cats came together, and we were playing together, white, black musicians, and it just, for me, at that point, he was bringing in, I remember, the bass player and the drummer from the Whispers, and it was really good to play with these guys and learn from them. And the first thing he taught us was how to read chord changes and what the changes meant, and that was super important in my own musical development. Of before then, just kind of playing. I had a teacher that my parents got me on bass for like the first 6 months, who taught me a little stuff about playing over changes. And I'm still to this day not a fantastic soloist over 1 million changes, but I can get around.
We do all right. Yeah.
But that made a huge difference for me to be able to go out and start playing gigs around town, where I actually had to read and learn to play over changes, and that was a real gift. And that I then started playing when I was 14 at a club in East Oakland on Fridays and Saturday nights. Keyboard player would come pick me up and take me down, and a lot of that stuff was written out changes and chord charts.
What was the name of the club?
And it was called the Cold Duck Club.
Oh, I think I knew that. I think Herb Wong used to talk about that place.
You might have. It was like, it was pretty.
I need you to pay. I need you. I mean,
cheesy,
this is. I know, but I mean, like, because I know that like cats like Ed Neumeister, the trombone player, he used to go to the Black Saint and see Gaylord Birch play in his trio with Tom Costner. But I wanted to get to this point because you look up so many things on certain cats like Dave Margen, and you get nothing. You hear about little remnants of things in the early 70s, but everything starts with, oh yeah, he was Santana's bass player. But I want to know the gig. I want to get into this gig at the Cold Duck Club. You were there Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah, I was 14 years old, and I was playing Fridays and Saturday nights. I can't believe now, actually, my parents would let me do that, because at 14 you don't have too much sense. But I was really serious about my music, so I started getting on-the-job training, as I like to call it, back at that point. And there was a very funky drummer named Kickin' Curtis Moore, and he taught me a lot about playing funk and how to intertwine with the kick drum as far as being a bass player at that point, because before then everybody was playing rock and it didn't really matter. But and I guess even like when I was 13, I used to get snuck into this place called the On Broadway in Oakland. I used to go see Tower of Power right when they were starting out, and when they were playing mid-sized small clubs in the Bay Area when they were just starting. And that was seeing Rocco at that age.
Oh my God, I cannot
really
believe
inspirational for me.
So the On Broadway was because you must have gotten off on the Garibaldi and Rocco in that rhythm section there.
Oh yeah, that was totally my total influence at that point. Probably more so than Jamerson or some other cats. Rocco was certainly a really big influence on me. And then I started playing. When I was 15, I went and joined this band called Frank Biner and the Night Shift. And Frank was a songwriter. I think he wrote This Time Is Real, one of Tower of Power's hits. And I was playing with my good friends Mark Baum and Johnny Otis in that band. And that went on for, I don't know, 6 months or a year or something like that. And we were working probably 3-4 nights a week. Keystone, Berkeley a lot, places like that, the Long Branch. I mean, there was this whole live music scene going on in Berkeley at that point, that we had, I think, 3 or 4 thriving clubs that were packed every night. Totally different than it is now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's such an intoxicating thing. Oakland, you grew up in Berkeley? Where did you grow up? Like, where was your
home?
Berkeley. In Berkeley. So you'd go right over to Oakland. I mean, were you getting off on like Marvin Holm and the Uptights
Oh yeah. In fact, I forgot about this. The gig that I had actually after playing in that club was with a band called the Whispering Shadow.
Where are the tapes of this stuff?
and the Whispering Shadow and Marvin Holmes and Uptights, we were sort of in competition with each other because we were the two sort of black show bands from Oakland at the time. And the Uptights, they had this TV show called, I think, Soul Is or something like that they used to play every weekend. And then the Whispering Shadow, like, we backed up Candy Staten when she came to town. They did Al Green before I was in the band. So they were the backing band for a lot of acts that came through. And so that was also an eye-opener for me. So I did that for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months, I think. And, they were all in their 30s and 40s, so I was 15, I think, so I was way younger than anybody else was. But again, I learned a lot.
Do you
a lot from them?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is stunning to me. Going back to the trio that you had at the Cold Duck Club with the drummer, he was teaching you funk, and as I've done my research, soul, and that stuff came out of the Sanctified Church, and they were not even using a trap set at that, so when he was playing these, different kinds of rhythms, and he was teaching you to play, how was he teaching you to play as it related to the bass drum? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, bass and kick drum are very interrelated. I mean, that's the lock of the groove.
Right.
And I don't know if I'm using too much musical term, but it's hard to put it into a real layman
you're
term,
doing fine.
except to say that if the kick and the bass, the kick drum and the bass guitar are not syncing and swinging together, then you got mush, and nothing's going to work on top of it. So he was definitely an influence in just teaching me how to swing and play more funky. And that really stuck with me. I remember a funny story that I was so infatuated with this guy, he spoke with a stutter. So I thought it was kind of cool to speak with a stutter. So like when I was 14, I created a fake stutter just to be like Kickin' Curtis Moore. This cat was,
Kickin' Curtis Moore.
He was probably 35 or 40 at the time, so I was looking up to him, obviously, and learning a lot from him. But so anyway, so getting back to that, so after that, then I joined this band, Frank Biner and the Night Shift, after Whispering Shadow with Mark Baum and John Yoder, who I've been friends and cohorts with in different bands for years. And we were playing, like I said, this whole scene in Berkeley was just, it was crazy. There was Frank Biner, and then you had a band called Grayson Street that Lenny Pickett came out of, who's was in Tower for years, and now he's the MD on Saturday Night Live. And it was just this whole scene going on back then that was really fun. I mean, everybody was sitting in with everybody. Eddie Money had a band called the Rockets back then, and then Eddie Money Band, and I mean, he was coming from the rock side, obviously. But yeah, there was just a lot going on here. It was a great learning experience, and for me, just to essentially be immersed in such a great scene. Then out of Frank Biner, Johnny Otis, who's the son of the famous Johnny Otis, he's a great drummer. He started getting into salsa and Latin, and said, he started this. I guess we started this street band. It was Salsa de Berkeley, and we started playing on the street, like at Sproul Plaza at UC Berkeley, and we got this great following going. And I got a bass. I think I got some kind of car battery that I had a converter so I could plug my bass amp in on the street, and we had 3 steel drum players in the band. One of them being Jeff Norell, who's a pretty well-known steel drum player. His brother's Andy Norell, who done millions of records on the steel drum. Great jazz player. And so we started on the street, then we morphed into Salsa de Berkeley, the band, and started playing clubs. And it was a really fun band. It was the first incarnation didn't have guitar or keyboards. It was just 3 steel drum players, and we were playing Latin and funk with steel drums and horns and traps and timbales and.
Yeah, I mean, this to me is where the Jake Feinberg pocket lies, is the salsa. Now, you're telling me Johnny Otis, is that Shoogie's dad or a different cat?
Johnny Otis Sr. is Shoogie's dad, yes.
And so Johnny was another...
hand jive and all that, and Johnny Otis is Shoogie's brother, the guy that I've been playing with for years.
Right, okay, so Johnny, what was Johnny, when he first came to you and started playing, what kind of records was he playing? If you say Margen, listen to this Latin stuff, man.
That was Eddie Palmieri, all kinds of different, Willie Colon.
The Fania stuff.
Yeah, a lot of, Fania All-Stars, all that stuff. Because that was really kind of at the time the most happening thing. Because we didn't have exposure to Cuba at that point, and except for Irakere that was coming out kind of around that time. It was actually after that Irakere came out. And
can we get a year on this, by the way? I'm really just trying to get a year on these things.
Yeah, this would have been probably 74, 75, 76, right in there.
Right, so
those 3 years.
So yeah. the Biner band was more like 71, 72.
No, that would have been about 73, because I was 15 in 73. Yeah, so 73 was the Biner band, and then Salsa de Berkeley, I think, kicked in around 1974. And we went through a couple different incarnations, and I stayed with Salsa de Berkeley, I guess, probably for about 3 years, up to the point of joining Santana out of that band. It was. I like to say we were world beat before world beat.
Well,
we were definitely pushing the envelope of a lot of different styles, and I think that there were guys around town that would probably look at me and going, "Man, what the hell are you doing, slapping funk in salsa?"
I love it so much, Margen. This is why I do the show, because and you know what? I mean, it was exactly what you learned from the stuttering drummer. I mean, you were fusing. I mean, to me, I really also like the indigenous quality of music. Margen is so critical. I still will go to clubs. Tucson has a scene of some sort. It used to be more vibrant in the 70s, like Berkeley, a lot of clubs. But, the idea of actually like taking it to the streets, and getting out those steel drums. And like you said, you did not have keyboards or guitar, which is essential which is really interesting, because those are instruments that, normally solo or play, melody. So you were taking traditional rhythmic instruments, and everything was melodic, but it was coming off steel drums, timbales. Even I'm sure you were slapping the bass. I mean,
yeah, we had sax and bone.
Who was playing that?
Mark Baum was playing sax.
And I got to get to these guys. This is the hippest band in the history. And so you develop. Would you say that your following developed on the street?
Yeah, and then we took it into the clubs. But yeah, we used to. I mean. And we were actually probably making $30 or $40 each playing on the street.
I love it.
In 1975, I guess, or 74, or whatever it was. I mean, just past the hat. Then we started going and playing around Ghirardelli Square in the city, and it was just this kind of street band that turned into this band. And that's why I told you this story the other day again when we were offline, just kind of talking for a moment about getting ready for this. And so that band with the steel drums, somebody from CBS heard about us, and so they flew up. The guy came up, saw the band. I guess he was the A&R guy that had discovered Sly and the Family Stone and a few other people out of here. And so he came up. He liked the band, but we really had no idea what to do business-wise to try and talk to them and try and make anything happen. And then after that, this electronic keyboard guy, a producer named Bernie Krause, he liked the band. He actually wanted to sign us to a production deal, and the production deal would have meant he was going to produce us and help us get a record deal. And again, we were just a bunch of kids, some in Berkeley High, others out of Berkeley High by that point, and political infighting within the band and stuff. We couldn't get it together to sign the deal, and finally we ended up breaking up. But it was where that incarnation broke up, and then Mark Baum, myself, and John Yotis put a new band together, more traditional instruments with guitar and trace and keyboard, and we went on and did that for, I guess, 2 or 3 years, also playing the clubs all the time. The Reunion in San Francisco was a totally happening club, and we used to hold court there. I mean, we'd play 2 or 3 nights and pack the place in.
Can you talk about the experience? There's one show available online for Salsa Day Berkeley, and it's from the Record Plant, and Mingo Lewis sat in with you. Can you talk about that experience?
I do. I kind of remember that. I think it was a radio show we were doing for, I think it might have been KSAN at that point, which was the big progressive station, rock station out of the Bay Area. And so, yeah, I remember we went in and I think it was a live radio show, as I recall.
Yeah, it was,
at the plant. And before that, there was, I don't know, somebody probably still has the 16 track on the someplace, because the old band went into a studio called Sierra Sound in Berkeley, and we did a pretty hip demo of 3 or 4 songs that was kind of like, part of it was like Tower of Power with steel drums. I mean, it was pretty crazy
was
stuff.
Was it before? No, I'm going to get the chronologically. This was the band before you couldn't get it together for the record contract. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay, beautiful.
Exactly.
Continue.
Exactly. And then the next band was, I'd say, more professional as far as understanding the business of music better. We were strong in the clubs, but we never really got any interest from the labels to get a record deal at that point. So that.
How did Mingo show up How did Mingo show up there? He was just invited.
I think we knew Mingo from around town, and so he just kind of came and sat in when we were at the studio that day.
Were there guys like Kenneth Nash hanging out there too? I mean, this is to me like when there were so many. I mean, you had Fantasy Studios up there. Everything was incorporating additional percussion. It was just layers upon layers upon layers, and then somehow you had to incorporate your own voice in there. But I mean, you had jazz cats that were older than you. Just like, were there ever cats that would just come in and sit in with you when you were first starting out with Salsa Day?
Like Armando Peraza used to come down and sit in with us at the Reunion.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
And I should say there was no better percussionist probably in the world except for Armando.
Absolutely.
Who unfortunately passed away last year.
Rest in peace. I'm very close with his wife on Facebook. She's a sweet
Josephina.
She's a sweetheart. She shares all my posts. And Armando eventually, for the audience, eventually played with Margen in the Santana band. This is the other thing before we move out of here, and so jazz, the post-bop era, you still had a lot of upright bass players, and then Miles started delving into the electronic funk rock jazz, and Michael Henderson was playing electric bass.
Exactly.
Ron Carter, even though I think he hated the electric bass.
You're right. I actually remember went to Fantasy one day, and he was doing a date with, God, I don't remember, but I got to go in and watch the session when I was really young.
No, come on, you got to remember who Genie.
I don't remember, but I just remember Ron was playing electric bass, and I could just tell that he was like, I hate this instrument.
I'm telling you, man, the old cats, man, the venerable cats that grew up, getting humbled by that thing, they hated when the skipper Henry Franklin joined Freddie Hubbard in the mid-set, he had to play the electric, and to me, what he was playing was just awesome, but he hated it. He couldn't stand it. Yet Margen, now you can put yourself down for not being able to play the upright, but can you explain to the audience why you like the electric bass? Because it's taken a lot of flack on the JFS.
I like the electric bass. I like the way it sounds. I like the way it plays, and I have great respect for the upright bass. But I guess I'm probably, even though my roots are in jazz and funk and rock, I probably I'm a little too heavy a player for playing upright, because I like also being able to rock a little bit too.
Can you talk? Can you talk about? Even though you had the experience of seeing Carter, did you see a jazz cat that you saw play upright, and then the next time you saw him, he was playing electric? And who do you think was a great guy who was a traditional upright player? And he was playing electric.
I'll tell you who the guy was. It was James Jamerson.
He used to play upright.
He started out on upright. Yep.
God. He was
an upright player, and then
wow,
and then switched to electric, and that's one reason I think he got such a fat, funky sound on all those old records, was because he was coming from an upright place, and there's something in his sound that kind of sounds somewhat upright, like too, in the bigness of his notes, and so that was a guy that definitely covered both. I think Stanley Clark started upright for sure, and then moved to electric.
Absolutely, that's a very good point.
So there's a lot of guys, and Stanley plays obviously fantastic upright and electric, and Jaco Pastorius was the first guy to play fretless, which for an electric is much closer sounding to an upright than a fretted bass, and so he completely, obviously, revolutionized bass playing. And I feel like I'm tangenting off all these.
No, you. We're marinating with Dave Margen. Listen, let's just take a break. We have a game on this program called Name That Tune. And then, so let's listen to this, and then we'll come back and talk about it, okay?
Okay, cool, okay.
In part by the Stereo Hospital, the Circle Tree Ranch. We thank you so much for supporting the show. All right, Mr. Margen, what do you got for us?
Aquamarine.
1979, Carlos Santana album, you got it. And can you talk about, not necessarily that track, but how you learned to create space in the music so that the silence was actually the music as well? I just like the way you fit. You're able to say your part, but you're not. I think you used the word mush before. But how did you learn to create space within the music?
Notes are as much what you play as what you don't play. And if you are all over the place, and duration for a bass player, duration of the note is so important, meaning whether you're playing muted or letting it ring out or whatever, and that's what creates the space in the music. And so, a good player knows what and where and when to play. And, that's something that I believe develops with maturity too, as far as being a player.
Did you get that experience being on the bandstand? I mean, we have a supply and demand issue now, Margen. You know, so many cats with huge chops coming out of these places, and they have no place to play. But you can't.
Yes.
To me, you can't develop that confidence in your bedroom or in the four walls of academia. And I'm not saying that academia is irrelevant, but did you gain that confidence on the bandstand?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that
unbelievable.
That's really where you learn to play, is on the bandstand. I mean, academia is great, and cats coming out of Boston or School of Music are just phenomenal. But you have to also get it on the bandstand, and you know, if you have both, if you have that education, but you also have the feel, and then you're really right there. I didn't get that kind of musical education. I learned more on the bandstand, and you know, my reading is okay, but I'm not a great sight reader, for instance. And in fact, it's funny because I'm playing in a band right now called the Sunday Paper, and 2 of our 4 members went to Berkeley, so we've been learning some weather report stuff and just some fun stuff to play live.
Right.
And so these guys, you know, as soon as the chart's in front of them, it's like all the notation, some of the really difficult stuff is like just read it right off. And myself and our guitar player Jeff Tamalier, who was in Tower of Power for 10 years, great player. You know, we struggle a little more with the paper when it comes out. But,
No, but I mean, it was something. Did you? I mean, there's a lot of things in my head right now. Did you consciously, as a musician, especially with that lilting Latin music? I think back to like Cal Jader's bands from right around the time that you were with Biner Band. You know, you had John Hurd was in the band, and Dick Burke, and it was like there was so much. It was just, well, the Afro-Cuban rhythms were intoxicating, and then somehow along the way, and I'm just trying to ask you, I'm not asking for a definitive answer, but then the drum track came in, and disco came in, and hard drugs came in, and it seemed like, I don't know, I just stopped hearing space in the music, and I'm wondering.
No, I'd agree with that. That.
Could you? I mean, was there a time in your
definitely?
Yeah.
This, you know, things got way more full and technical and less space, and you know, everybody playing over on top of each other, and that was certainly a change in the music. But also, there was also, you know, the '70s fusion thing. Some of that stuff didn't have a lot of space in it. I mean, there was some record, you know, it was all chops at some point, but that kind of faded away too, I think. And I just think that kind of, that's how you delineate from a really seasoned player who knows where to play what and how much space to put in to the music. And it's almost a respect thing too, where, you know, you don't play on top of somebody else.
That's right. No, but you're saying, I mean, it became like a horde of voices playing on top of each other. You know, it's just, you know, part of my show, Margen, deals with the metaphysical. And, you know, there's only 2 letters that separate the words music and magic. And I think that today we live in a very classic kind of the creativity. There's so much. There is so much investment in classical music, where you know, cats are channeling the creativity of the conductor instead of their own individual creativity, and I just think that what gets lost in this whole thing, whether you were playing with Devadip or, you know, Johnny Otis or you know whoever it was, you know, it's like, okay, you know, there's a transcendental quality to music, and I'd like you to talk about an experience in your career where you left your physical body, where you left that physical plane and transcended and transcended the music, and what that was like?
God, me think that's a hard one.
I know.
I mean,
pregnant pauses on radio are difficult. No, I'm kidding. You take your time. I'm just saying, like this.
I mean, there were times I think. I remember being in Japan playing with Herbie and Hancock, and there was, at some point, I think, just listening and playing with Herbie, that it did sort of lift to a different plane. I kind of do remember that.
What did it feel? What did that feel like, as opposed to what normal playing would be?
Well, you just you get in this euphoric sort of state.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best way I can put it.
Love it.
It happened with Santana sometimes. I kind of remember there was we used to, I forgot the name of this song, but there's a ballad that we would do towards the end of the night, usually during the encores. And in the middle of it, we would go into a heavy swing. And I kind of remember certain nights, just getting into the zone. Because, there wasn't a lot of swing playing.
No.
When I say swing, I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
walking bass in Santana.
Right.
And it was fast, too. I mean, so it was... So I remember sometimes they were just kind of getting in the zone. But I think that, there's been times, there's times when I've been playing and I don't know where I go, and then I come back and I'm like at the end of the song.
That's what I'm talking about. Because that's what
I mean,
people.
that happens.
Yeah. Why?
That certainly happens. Where you're just kind of, I don't know where I went. But
and I don't think words actually. It's impossible.
Then you're thinking back, did I screw up this last part of the song? Because I don't remember playing it.
But yet, then you listen back to it and you're like, holy cow! It was perfect. It was fine. It was fine. There's a, I'm really not about preservation. I'm more about promotion of this kind of these stories, because I don't want it to become a NAMM show chop factory. I don't need all the technique and the showmanship. I want to transcend, and we live in this age of digitization, so there's kind of an imbalance. Now, just for the audience, Dave Margen doesn't know this, but a lot of his bass playing with a band helped me through my younger days when I was walking the track in Stony Brook, Long Island, trying to get stuff off my chest. So I want to put in this clip. It's a few minutes long, Margen. Just hang in there, and then we'll break it down.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, cool.
You want it? Yeah. Check what's in it. Open it. Open everything up. Open it up quick before I introduce the band. That's Dave Margen, our bass player's room key. Not mine, his. That's his room key. He's on bass. That's right there. Isn't she nice? Sweet. Jerry Cortez on guitar and vocals. Buddy. Good guitar player, man. He's all right. Brent Mydland, how are you doing tonight? Keyboard vocals. This monitor sounds better than mine. God, those mine sounded that good. I get to test all the monitors up here tonight. Testing. Alex Litcherwood, vocals and guitar, tambourine, drumsticks, and assorted other things. Thank you. We'll play a little louder. We're doing it a little tired here. We've been doing this for a few weeks. A little louder. Not louder. Bill Kreutzmann on the drums. Yeah.
To you guys, he's Billy Kreutzmann. To us, he's the amazing Kreutzmann. Unbelievable.
Let Bill sing! Hey, Alex, when's Jerry's nose gonna heal? Sing, Bill! Come on, Billy! I go!
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, sponsored in part by Abbott Taylor Jewelers as well. We thank you for your support. Dave Margen, thank you for being alive, my friend. Please tell me that, please, I mean, first of all, did you hear that rant from Mr. Kreutzmann at the beginning of that track?
I did, and where was that?
Okay, so little unbeknownst to me, I was probably watching the Mets in the 86 World Series, October 12th, 86, at my father's place, Roslyn, Long Island. I was just down the road in Stony Brook, and the band Go Ahead was playing there. And Billy, I mean, Margen, before I ever got on this journey, way back when, I mean, I'm listening to this, and he's like, open it up, open it up, open it up. That's Dave Margen, the bass player's room key. I'm like, this band, this was the most. Now, we're going to go into it in part two. Because we have Kokomo and there's Margen Kreutzmann band. I really just want you to talk to the audience the first time that you met Billy, and then how you guys, why you guys connected.
Okay. Man, that. I have to say that rant was pretty funny.
I got more, Margen. This whole thing.
I forgot about all that rant we used to chatter we had on stage. It was fun.
Legends.
any case, how I met Billy was, this was I'm thinking 84, 85. I got a call to do a tour with a band called Kingfish, which was a Dead offshoot.
Or Matt Kelly and those cats,
I guess, as I recall, I think Weir started that thing, but then he left it. And
that's right.
Any case, so I got a phone call. I'm interested in going out and doing, I think it was a month or a month and a half, with Kingfish. And I said, well, let me check my schedule, and yeah, I think I can fit it in.
Right.
Let me, what's the deal? So, they said, well, we got Bill Kreutzmann. It sounds like he's going to be playing drums on the tour, and some other guys, and Brent Mydland's going to be playing keyboards. And so I said, cool. I think I probably had met Billy through the year. I mean, I think Santana and the Dead did a few shows together.
Right.
But I don't really remember hanging out with Billy much. I remember, we got a memo before the dates saying don't drink anything from an open bottle from our tour manager before we played with the Dead. So.
You're right. You never knew what was in there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
so
Garibaldi talked about...
precaution.
Oh, yeah.
Don't drink from an open bottle unless you open it up yourself.
That's right. Very smart.
Playing with the Dead. So, in any case, so I went to rehearsal, and Billy was there, and we just kind of hit it off playing together pretty quickly, and we ended up becoming really good friends on that tour. It was kind of a crazy tour that I don't think it was run all that well, and so I remember Billy and I kind of, I guess I'll use the word commandeered, but I don't want to use that word, shared a bedroom on the bus.
We
were bunkmates for, I don't know, 3 weeks or a month or something like that. I think, as I recall, we had the bus for a while, and then we started flying dates because went into the Midwest, and then I guess into Colorado, as I recall, or something like that. But on the bus portion, we were shared. So yeah, we ended up playing together and becoming really good friends, and then from there, that's right. So this is kind of we'll get into this later, but this is a good funny story.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
Brent is also. So Billy and Brent and I kind of like the three of us sort of hit it off from the beginning. It sounded like everybody else we're good players, but for some reason the three of us just kind of ended up.
The jokers.
Yeah, we had a good time with each other. Sure. But so I remember like the third or fourth date into the tour, we got up and went down for lobby, and it's like, where's Brent? Nobody's seen Brent. Where's Brent? So everybody gets worried. What the hell's going on here? And so we get the hotel, open up Brent's door, and his suitcase is gone, and there's no Brent. Well, Brent didn't really like the way the tour was going, so he went home.
He left the tour. Unbelievable.
He just went home. He just went and bought a plane ticket. I think we were in Boston, and went and got a plane ticket, and the next day Brent was off the tour. So we finished it up without him. There were two keyboard players in the band, so it wasn't like there were no keys.
Brent was just, that is...
It was like Brent's gone.
Margen, when you became friends with Billy, but it's really still interesting when I listen to some of his work with the Dead. Can you talk about what you like, why you guys connected as a rhythm section, like what he did on the drums that really that you got off on?
Yeah, he's a really sort of elastic player, and it like from the surface, it would seem like an odd combination, Billy and I playing together, because he's more I'm more of like a pocket kind of player.
Right.
And, when I get into a groove, I will repeat the lines that I'm playing just because that's what you do when you're grooving on bass, Phil Lesh doesn't come from that same place at all in his
Not even
playing.
close. No, exactly.
And so it just kind of, it's just Billy, he has a really different feel, but it just kind of worked between us really well. Guy plays an incredible shuffle. And in fact, I probably learned about how to play a better shuffle playing with Kreutzmann. But there was just something kind of loose about his playing that was kind of refreshing.
Yeah, no, and like that medicated goo, man. I mean, that track, I was listening on analog cassette for years. And Margen, I got to send you some of this stuff because the banter. I mean, from this tour, this '86 tour, this is a more refined tour. Mydland did not take a plane home on this tour, and
Brent was right there.
This was we cooked through an hour, Dave. I'd like to pick up part 2 relatively soon because we have a lot more to get to. I hope I had a ball, man. I hope
I had a really great time too, and we can pick it up right on this.
Yeah, we'll pick. We have a lot more to cover, and
we got a ton more to cover. This went really
a ton
quickly,
more, and then
I want to
get Sunday paper down to Tucson as well.
Oh man, that'd be great.
Yeah. Now we'll Margen, thank you. I truly, I've done 500 interviews. This is in the top 10 already. So
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
All right.
And it was really fun, and let's continue it on. It's fun for me. You're jarring a lot of old memories for me, so that's really fun.
That's my job. All right, have a good.
And you got to send me out some of that stuff. But we'll talk this week, and you can turn me on to some of that go ahead stuff because I have hardly any of it. And
oh my God,
I would
open it
love
up.
to check it out.
Open it up.
Yep.
It's Dave Margen's room key. All right, man. Listen.
Okay, thanks, Jake.
Have a great day.
All right, thanks.
We'll be right back on the Jake Feinberg Show.